have 4 daughters at home, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old. And so I'm at that stage of parenting where I'm either their hero who can do no wrong and always saves the day, or I'm the oppressive tyrant who makes rules that are so stupid. I'm basically stuck between being Superman or that preacher from the Footloose town that's always trying to get kids to stop dancing. It's a tough life. And I know at times it can be draining to always be on and be in control and often to be the bad guy. But this is such an important time in our children's development. And for you who are dads, you play a big part in teaching them about who God is and what He's like. And that requires close involvement in their lives and for you to take control of certain parts of their lives. And I know that sounds like a huge task, so can I shrink it down to just 2 words, 2 simple challenges: connect and correct. Connect is the being involved in their lives part, which means spending quality time together, playing on the floor with your kids, reading a book together, talking with them about their day and hearing their endless stories about unicorns and a bug that almost maybe one time got in the house but didn't. Trust me, I know all the stories. Connection is how we show our kids about God's unconditional love and how He deeply cares about the details of our lives. And this is so important because a parent who only gives correction without connection, they feel cold and unloving, and then rules and boundaries become things to rebel against, not something to be embraced as healthy. So dads, spend time with your kids, not on your phones, not walking in the door and hopping on the PS4, or if you're bougie, a PS5, but actually talking and listening with our kids. We can see this in the command God gave to parents in the nation of Israel thousands of years ago. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Now, Jesus went on to say this was the first and greatest commandment, so it's pretty important. And here's how you do it. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them, meaning to emphasize them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Jesus would later sum up all the commands that are being mentioned here by saying the most important thing to have a good life is to love God and love people. And so if we want our kids to have a good life, we need them to see this. And the way we help them with this is through connection and correction. We have to spend time with them and connect when you sit at home, or you drive in the car, when it's time to go to bed, when it's time to wake up. And we need to not just listen to them talk, but we need to talk as well. Talk about our love for God and what He means to us. I mean, if we want them to love God, the best way we can emphasize that is for them to know how much we love God and how important He is to us. But it's not just talking and connection, it's also correcting their behavior. God makes clear that His commands and His way of life, they're for our good. But believe it or not, your kids don't naturally follow God's way of life. I once heard a psychologist say that the primary function of a parent is to be your child's substitute frontal lobe. If you're like me and you don't know what the frontal lobe of your brain does, it's the part of your brain that internally motivates you to initiate and plan for good behavior and take control of your bad behavior. And your frontal lobe doesn't develop until you're 25 years old. So basically, your 6-year-old is actually incapable of making a wise choice on their own. Your 10-year-old will struggle to think about the consequences of their actions beforehand. They can't see how their current behavior will affect their future relationships. They can't see around those corners, but you can. And no matter how many conversations you have about it, they won't be able to implement that knowledge because their brain isn't fully built yet. And since you know your job is to help them grow into adults who can love God and love people, you need to give them external motivations that will help them make the right choices. This is why we have to have clear rules and boundaries, and you have to enforce those rules and boundaries, consequences, and rewards. Without a frontal lobe, your child doesn't have the ability to internally motivate themselves to good behavior, so they need some external motivations. And this is where correction comes in. When they can't control themselves, they need you to control them. And sometimes it means you don't save them from their natural consequences. When they keep being mean and bossy and then other kids won't play with them, don't save them from it. That's your time to come in and connect and sympathize and then offer them some advice. You wouldn't want to be friends with someone who acted like that, but you would want to be friends with someone who was kind and treated people fairly, like I've taught you to do. But sometimes there aren't natural consequences, and you'll have to create some consequences. And I know that doesn't feel good. You don't want to be Dad the sheriff, Dad who always says no or sends you to timeout or takes away tablet time. But your child needs you to be. They crave structure, and they need you to care more about them being a healthy 30-year-old who learned how to initiate good behavior and control their negative impulses and responses than you do about them being a happy 6-year-old who never got in trouble or screamed, "I hate you, Dad." And ultimately, you want this because God has given you the job to help your kids grow to be an adult who has every chance to succeed at loving God and loving people. Not be adults with great jobs in a house with a pool and a home theater in the basement. Your goal is to help them love God and love people, and connection helps them understand the unconditional love of God and how much He cares about the details of our lives. And correction helps them understand the wisdom of God for them to live a good life and how obedience to His commands is critical to us living a good life. Both are vital to helping your child grow to love God and love people. So let's do better.